Hi, my name is Dan Charter with John L. Scott, and today I'm going to go over NWMLS Form 17, the Seller Disclosure Statement. I'm going to go over what this form actually is, maybe a little bit on how to fill it out with the seller, what it means to the seller, what it means to the buyer a little bit, just to give you an idea on the form. So the Seller Disclosure Statement is is communication from the seller to the buyer of the property on the property condition to help eliminate any problems later on. So there's three main instructions that go along with this form, and we're going to see it on the screen as we go through things here. So the three things you need to remember are: one, you must not leave any blank spaces. You are to complete the form. Do not leave any blank spaces. If a question clearly does not apply to the property, you check NA. If the answer is yes to any asterisk items, you have to explain on attached sheet. And another rule to remember is that the seller disclosure must be filled out by the seller. It cannot be filled out by your real estate agent or anything like that. It must be done by the seller. So the three rules are: make sure you answer everything, make sure you fill out yourself, and make sure you provide clarification if you need to. And we're going to go through it a little bit right here so you can see some of the things that are asked. Whether or not he's going to ask whether or not you are occupying the property. Do you have the legal authority to it? Are there any easements against the property? Any assessments against the property? Have you ever had any zoning violations? Is everything permitted? The water system, the source of water. If you always had water, where does the water come from? Is it through municipal? Is coming through a well? Have you ever had any water problems? Have you ever had any sewage problems? Is it sewage? Is it public sewage? Is it septic? When's the last time the septic was inspected? Have you ever had the house inspected? Has the house ever failed? Have you had any pest problems? Have you ever had any flooding? Have you ever had a roof leak? When's the last time the roof was replaced? What type of remodeling were done? Did you get permits for the remodeling? Are there any issues? As you go through there, it asks questions from top to bottom on the system, and you might might not know the answer to the question. You might be like, I don't know. Well, guess what? There's a box for that. I don't know. If you legitimately don't know, then you don't know. If you do know, you're to answer truthfully. Sit there and say, yes, this is what happened. Or no, because what you don't want to have happen is later on the buyer does find out that maybe that there was a flood in the basement and you never disclosed it, and they find out that they know it did happen. Things that you don't want to have to deal with later on. Because the purpose of this is to provide this way for the sellers to communicate with the buyers the condition of the home, any problems they may have had while they lived in it, so that nothing comes up later on. For buyers, this, again, because it's communication from the seller, it allows the buyer to make an informed decision. It avoids uncertainty for the buyers. So for a buyer standpoint, when you receive this, and a lot of times you receive this initially with your offer that you're going to submit, with them already filled out and signed by the seller, for the buyer, you want to make sure that they did actually answer every line in here. They did not leave anything blank. Manufactured mobile homes. Well, it's not a manufactured home, and they left it blank. Well, they should probably go back and check NA. Does not apply. And there's the catch-all is, are there any other existing material defects affecting the property that a prospective buyer should know about? That's like the last line there is there anything else? If you as a homeowner were buying this property, what would you like to know? Would you like to know that, the bathtub flooded in the bathroom, and so, you got it taken care of, but, what, as a buyer, what damage was done to the walls, what damage was done maybe to the vents on the floor, things you might want to know about. Anytime that something that's happened to the house that you can remember, and I know it's all over a lot of years, a lot of times you don't know everything, can't remember everything that might have happened to your home, but if you have those records, there are things that you want to let them know about. Because as a buyer, they are due the courtesy of being able to be informed and not be misled by the seller in any way, shape, or form. There are time frames for this form when it gets filled out, how long the buyer has to see it, how long they have to return it. Those are all things that you should definitely talk to your agent about, because the time frames on the form can be negotiated by an agent, and a buyer actually can waive the right to receive the completed disclosure form. If it's not complete, they can waive the right to receive it and just go forward without receiving it. We sometimes see that in this market when people are going to do a teardown anyways, then they don't really care about that part of it all. You have the right to revoke your offer based on the responses of the seller. If you don't have the 17, then you make your offer and it gets accepted, and then they provide the 17 to you finally. Later on, you're able, if you don't like the responses in there, you can say, you know what, we don't like this. We revoke our offer based on the Form 17. And something to go back with filling out Form 17 completely. If you don't fill out Form 17 completely as a seller, then if the buyer never fully received a full Form 17, then they can never fully accept it, which means they, up until closing, can't rescind their offer. Arguably, it was something that would have been involved with lawyers possibly. It would definitely be a back and forth, but it's something that they could possibly do. So as a seller, you want to make sure your offer goes forward. You don't want your buyer to back out, so you want to provide them all the information, so that they, like I said, so they make a clear, informed decision, that they know exactly what they're getting, that they're not being taken for a ride or anything crazy. And as a seller, that's what you want to provide. And as a buyer, you want to go over this form, just like all the forms. You want to actually go over them yourself. Take a look at what the seller is actually saying in these forms. If they said, hey, we had a flood in the basement. Well, what did they say they did? Did they say they did anything? No? Well, now we have some question. There are things that you need to do in order to make as a buyer, make a informed decision. So this is just a nutshell going over a Form 17, really. There's a lot more involved with it, and you read through it all. I'm not going to go through everything here. The form you just saw actually notices to the buyer on the sex offender registry. This does nothing for sex offender registry. This is up to the buyer's due diligence and proximity to farming. It may lie in close proximity to a farm, and because of that, it might have protections, and so you may need to do some research as well as a buyer for that there. But as a buyer, your job is to pay diligence to what the form says, so you can make that decision. And like I said, as we go through this form, we'll go back through the other way, we'll see some of the other ones. Lead-based paint, whether or not there's lead-based paint in the house, there may or may not be. And so like here you see lead-based paint applicable if the house was built for 1978. It's either known there's lead-based paint or has no knowledge. And records and reports are available to the seller, or the seller has no records or reports of lead-based paint in the house. But if you are after 1978, there's nothing to check because it doesn't include you at all. But a lot of times, there you go. Seller has no knowledge of lead-based paint in housing. Seller has no reports. That's how you enter that right there if you're after 1978. So that everything has an answer. There is no room for interpretation for the buyer. The buyer shouldn't have to interpret the form. It should totally disclose to the buyer anything that may be a problem. From homeowner situation to environmental problems. Whether there's a stove, is there a security system, is anything leased that they might have to take over the lease for, or get a new lease for themselves. Those are things that are all part of the Form 17, the seller's disclosure statement. So, once again, my name is Dana Charter with John L. Scott. Last case scenario, though, last thing with this, if there's ever any questions about your Form 17, talk to your real estate agent. As a seller, talk to your listing agent. As a buyer, talk back to your selling agent. Talk to your agent about the Form 17 if you have any questions ever about it. And that's it. Have a nice day. Bye.